Hello, I would like to tell you a story. The story of how I came to live here. I am what is known on your world as a tall gray from the Zeta Reticulum star system. Please, do not confuse me with our smaller worker class or semi-engineered artificially created drones. And I'm also not to be confused with the elite race of the highest caste order. Although not elite, I did play an important role in our society. I was a starship captain of a small orbital craft from the prime planet of the Zeta Reticulum star system, and on a routine observational assignment of Sol 3 Terra. Your planet has been observed by my kind since close to the time of your primates had already evolved, but before the time of the Great Apes. We began regular monitoring of your world at regular intervals, soon after your species' creation by the inhabitants of Nibiru. We increased frequency of visits when you industrialized, but made our presence permanent when we detected the precursory energy signatures of primitive low-yield nuclear fission. I was to evaluate your progress on a desert base in North America on an important mission. This mission was different because based on my findings, we would send representatives to establish relations to ensure our best interests were made before any other stellar power could make any arrangements. However, upon entry of your atmosphere, we experienced an electrical storm. While normally our ships are enveloped in several energetic fields which perform myriad tasks, everything from tactical shielding to internal and external gravitational manipulation, the unusual intensity, frequency, and precision of the lightning strikes caused a cascading failure on a gravity polarity field that created a positive ion dispersal. This dispersal not only attracted the totality of that atmospherical storm, but concentrated it at a focal point. It caused us to crash. My crew's smaller and frailer bodies could not withstand the impact. Because of the importance of our mission, they were not artificial beings or constructs. Their terminated existences meant their true deaths. I was alone and without any help. I knew that I had to gather myself quickly and leave that wreckage. I did not know how close I was to the military base, but I did know the region's humans had developed adequate technology to detect our ship at that particular point of our ship's field's cascade field, and I knew that it was only a matter of time that their military authority figures would arrive. I started hiking towards the vegetated cover, but before I could reach it, I had already detected that I was not alone. Sensing futility, I stopped and offered no resistance. They surrounded me. Your soldiers captured me and took me prisoner. In their methodology, it showed me, as crude as your technology was, it belies your intuition and creativity. Yes, you surprised me. Your crudeness was made manifest in the strong wire cage made from as much of a new experimental metal you could muster at that time. Your intuition and creativity shined in the Faraday cage, whose energies around it, my unique mental abilities could not extend further from, in any significant strength at least. And it proved problematic for some forms of technology to penetrate and free me. For some reason, my medical examinations were not as thorough or intrusive as I thought they would be. From this I deduced that not only had you prior knowledge of our species, but perhaps you had already examined the bodies of my crew. What they wanted from me, what you wanted from me, was my knowledge and information, and to jeopardize that by hindering my body was unacceptable. Thus, I was interrogated. The interrogation was brutal. It was lengthy and intensely filled with physical and psychological intimidations. As the larger type of my species, my tolerances for pain and my stamina were far above humans, and emotional intimidation was nearly useless. However, there were far more of you than there were of me, and thus the outcome inevitable. I answered your questions, and instead of revelation, you experienced confusion. When I provided clarity, you responded with shock and horror, from hints of the knowledge that you were not fit to know. Your glimpse of how small you were terrified you. Like one of the few television series on your planet that I did enjoy and root to, you realized that not only were you not a single and strong voice on your world, but you were a small voice in a large, vast chorus, and a weak and undisciplined voice at that. In your fear, you forced me to give you technology in anticipation of the wave of contact from other worlds sure to come. I knew that I could not allow myself to give you anything that could possibly tip the scales of power in your favor. Yet I also knew that what I did give must be fantastic enough, at least to you, in order to make my cooperation appear believable. I gave you schematics for incredibly powerful combustion engines with minor gravitational manipulation technology to bolster its performance rather than the grander designs for phase shifting or overall inertial manipulation technologies. You were content, and you experimented, but strangely enough, you did not trust nor find merit in pursuing gravitational manipulations. So your first experimental craft were mostly combustion at the facility you kept me in. I did eventually find out that you had a smaller team exploring the prospect of gravitational manipulation in its entirety at another base. Your energy signals from the experimental technologies pilfered from my species, and perhaps others, continued nuclear activities and distress from my people concerning my crash created impetus for otherworldly species to finally make formal contact with your planet's governments. First, your United States of America spoke with a species you came to call the Nordics. They offered to provide spiritual guidance and some technological help in exchange for your dismantling of nuclear weapons and minimization of nuclear energies. This would be with the intent of the eventual phasing out of these technologies. However, as short-sighted and insecure as that government was, it refused, fearing inability to retaliate against foreign and especially extraterrestrial powers. The United States of America next spoke with the species designated as the Tall Whites. They offered technology and cooperative research with that government. They agreed. In exchange, that country promised land in the deserts for several of their communities to live in, as well as influence and input on how the United States of America would create further policy for extraterrestrial relations. Soon thereafter, my people came to play the long game. Their contributions were as follows. Technology beyond that of what the Tall Whites had offered, as well as incorporation with several more practical level technologies. Computer, connective, and communication technologies to help with those of the ones I had already given them. Forgiveness and complete ownership of all bodies and technologies that the United States of America had already confiscated and pilfered from the crashes of past ships and my captivity. And lastly, me. In compensation for not bringing up certain inhumane treatments the United States had done to me and past graves to up to the Council of Nine, my people asked for the rights to build and maintain several underwater stations, hidden joint installations on land, as well as several underground permanent facilities in which humans could visit, but with exclusive levels without human presence. However, the masterstroke was the demand of exclusive rights to abductions of a certain percentage of U.S. American citizens, provided we identified them. To this, the United States of American government agreed. Now the United States of American government had official correspondence with higher ranking, higher stationed, and higher caste elite grades. I was almost a burden now. The U.S. government created more powerful craft that relied less and less on aerodynamics, which planted the seeds for its Space Force. The U.S. government ended up renting me out to consult with private technologies companies. When they didn't need me, your motion picture industry paid for my consultations for realism. Had I lived 100 years to think on this, I would not have guessed that this would be the instrument of my freedom. I became associated with several promising directors, but one particular taught me friendship. He profited immensely from our conversations and told me that Hollywood is made from favors almost as much as talent, and that he owed me big time. He then asked what he could do to make it up to me. Only one thing was on my mind. I had already begun strengthening my mental abilities by pushing against my fortunately stagnantly evolving prison. But I also began requesting items that the assigned soldiers and downgraded scientists deemed safe. I fashioned a small device that had no power signature of its own, but would be able to siphon off of the energies of the Faraday cage that imprisoned me and create a one-way portal to a predetermined place of my choosing. That one use would probably render the device useless afterwards. During my best opportunity in days, I activated the device and was gone. Can you guess where I went? I appeared in the living room of the one and only friend I had in the entire universe. My new freedom in seeing him elicited an emotional response that I had never experienced. I took solace in our familiarity and also respect and deep appreciation and recognition of the risk of his own well-being he ignored in his part in my freedom. He then told me that he had built a secret underground lair for me, his words, and that whatever I wanted that was his to give was mine. The first thing I requested was the largest bowl of strawberry ice cream I could eat. The second was a flight to a place that I could look up at the stars, devoid of air pollution and the obscuring elements that your government dispenses into the skies. After a flight to a desert sufficiently away from any of your bases, I began to think. I no longer served a function. My world had abandoned me. My human captors did not even require my assistance or activity. Being inconsequential to one and possibly a threat, and loose end to another, my existence was now mine. The closest I had ever come to feeling this way was as a child. But what would I do with this existence? Eat strawberry ice cream all day? The thought and phrasing of my internal monologue amused me, out of its absurdity and possibility. The thought evoked an emotional response in me, and it was one that felt extremely exaggerated, yet close to one I had rarely experienced. Sometimes when I had completed my tasks, I felt satisfaction. In rare occasions I was praised, I felt pride. This felt like those feelings, but geometrically enhanced, but also synergetically merged together. This was very much like what I felt when I teleported to freedom, except without the gratitude. It felt indulgent, selfish. Was this happy? This feeling, these thoughts affected my body without me even realizing it. I had been smiling. My smile gave me to laughter. And something else. I haven't quite figured out what I had experienced, but I've come to experience it more and more since I've had more time. It comes when I think about my confinement and abandonment by my world. It comes when I perform my experiments on living things from your world, especially the humans, and even more when they are conscious and screaming. But I digress. Well, that's my story. Feel free to share it with anyone you like, or don't. It makes little difference to me. However, there is one human that I do wish to know my story. In fact, I hope I might be able to meet him. From what I hear, he is something of a pet person. And in some recent times of boredom, I created a pet myself. And I would love for it to meet his. Perhaps we could set up a play date. Until then, remember, this is Disinformation Central, and none of this is true. So, remember,